Hey, everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where we talk about what comes after sobriety and how to build your unlimited life. You know, I created this podcast to give you simple, actionable strategies to help you break through fear, build momentum, and create a life that actually lights you up. And if you're someone who's been waiting for the perfect moment, the right circumstances, or that magical feeling of readiness before you take action, then you are in the right place today. And I want to check in with you for a second because I have a feeling if you clicked on this episode, you might be sitting in that familiar place of waiting. You know the one I'm talking about. You're waiting to feel ready before you commit to sobriety, waiting to feel confident before you have that difficult conversation, waiting to feel motivated before you start working on that project that's been sitting in the back of your mind for months or maybe even years. And here's what I want to tell you right up front. That feeling you're waiting for is probably never coming, at least not in the way you think it will. And I know that may sound harsh, but stick with me here because this is actually really good news. Today, we're talking about something that I think holds so many of us back from living the life we actually want. We're diving into why readiness is a myth, how confidence actually gets built, and the discipline of doing things before you feel like doing them. And I'm going to share some personal stories about times when I absolutely did not feel ready, but moved forward anyway, and how that changed everything for me. Okay, so let's start with this idea of readiness. I want you to think about something for a second. Think about a time in your life when you actually felt 100% ready for something. Maybe it was a big presentation at work, or asking someone out, or starting a family. Can you think of a time that you felt 100% ready? Because honestly, I can't come up with one from my own life. And here's what I've learned after years of working on myself and watching other people build their lives and pursue their goals. Readiness is not a feeling that descends upon you like some kind of magical fairy dust. It's not something you wake up one morning and suddenly have. Instead, readiness is something you build through action. Let me say that again because it's so important. Readiness is something you build through action, not something you wait to feel before you take action. We have it completely backwards. Think about it this way. When you learned to ride a bike, did you feel ready before you got on that bike? No, you probably felt terrified. You probably fell down 100 times, but you built readiness through the act of doing it. Every time you got back on that bike, you became a little more ready, a little more capable, a little more confident. And here's the kicker. If you had waited to feel ready before getting on that bike, you'd probably still be waiting. You'd be standing on the sidewalk watching other people ride by thinking, I'll do it when I feel ready. But that day never comes. The same is true for everything else in your life. Starting a business, having that hard conversation, making that big change, publishing that thing you've been working on, reaching out to that person. The readiness you're waiting for will only come after you start, not before. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but what about preparation? Don't I need to be prepared? And yes, absolutely. There's a difference between preparation and waiting to feel ready. Preparation is practical. It's learning the skills you need, doing the research, getting your ducks in a row. That's important. But what I'm talking about is the emotional readiness, the feeling of, okay, now I'm confident enough. Now I'm brave enough. Now I feel like I can handle this. That feeling, it's a trap because the truth is you're never going to feel completely ready for something that scares you or challenges you to grow. And all the things worth doing are almost always scary. I'll give you a personal example. When I decided to start this podcast, I didn't feel ready. I had so many doubts running through my head. And I waited and pondered for like 2 years before I actually did it, by the way. But I had so many doubts running through my head. Like, what if it's terrible? What if nobody listens? What if nobody likes me? What if I sound stupid? What if I run out of things to say? All those fears were totally valid and totally real. But what I realized was I could spend another 6 months preparing, researching, perfecting my setup, planning every episode down to the last detail, and I still wouldn't feel ready because the fear wasn't about preparation. It was about being seen. It was about putting myself out there. And no amount of planning was going to make that fear go away. So I recorded my first episode, and it was messy and imperfect and probably not that great. But you know what? I did it. And then I recorded another one and another one. And with each episode, I got a little better. I became a little more ready. But that readiness came from doing, not from waiting. And this leads me to my second big point, and this one is huge. Confidence follows action, not the other way around. We think we need to build up our confidence before we do the scary thing, but actually it works in reverse. You do the scary thing, and then confidence follows. I want you to really let that sink in because it's counterintuitive. We've been taught our whole lives that confidence comes first, that confident people do brave things. But what I've learned is that brave people do things despite not feeling confident. And then confidence builds as a result. Think about any skill you've developed in your life. Maybe you learned to cook or speak in public or play an instrument or running or lifting weights, whatever the thing is. In the beginning, you had zero confidence. You probably felt awkward and uncomfortable and like you had no idea what you were doing. And you know what? You were right. You didn't know what you were doing, but you did it anyway. And with each attempt, you got a little better. You made mistakes and learned from them. You tried new things. And gradually over time, confidence started to build. Not because you waited to feel confident, but because you took action before you felt confident. This is such an important distinction because so many of us are waiting. We're waiting to feel confident before we apply for that job. We're waiting to feel confident before we start that side project, waiting to feel confident before we put our work out into the world. And we think if we just wait long enough, if we just prepare enough, if we just learn enough, that confidence will magically appear. But you could spend years preparing and still not feel confident because confidence doesn't come from knowledge alone. It comes from experience. It comes from doing the thing and realizing you survived it. It comes from failing and getting back up. It comes from pushing through fear and discovering that you're more capable than you thought. I remember when I started doing video content, I was so uncomfortable in front of the camera for a million reasons. I'd record the same 30-second clip 15 times because I kept messing up or I didn't like how I looked or I thought I sounded weird. And you know what I wish someone had told me back then? That it was just supposed to feel uncomfortable, right? That everyone feels that way at first. And the only way through it is through it. So I keep showing up. I keep hitting record. And little by little, I get more comfortable. I started worrying less about how I looked and more about what I was saying. I started caring less about being perfect and more about being helpful. And somewhere along the way, my confidence started showing up, not before I started, but because I started. And here's something else I want you to know too. Confidence isn't this permanent state that you achieve and then have it forever. It comes and goes. You can feel confident about something one day and totally insecure about it the next day. That's normal. That's human. But the more you practice taking action before you feel ready, the more you build what I call action confidence. This is different from feeling confident. Action confidence is the ability to do things even when you don't feel confident. It's the muscle you build by repeatedly pushing through fear and discomfort. And that muscle, that's the real game changer. Okay, so this brings me to the third piece of this puzzle, and it's probably the most important one: the discipline of doing before you feel like it. Because here's the reality: most days, you're not going to feel like doing the hard thing. Most days, you're not going to feel motivated or inspired or ready. And if you only take action when you feel like it, you're going to spend a lot of time waiting. Discipline is what bridges the gap between what you want and what you have. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going. And discipline is simply the practice of doing things even when you don't feel like doing them. Now, I know that doesn't sound very sexy or inspiring. We live in a culture that's obsessed with motivation and inspiration and passion. We see these highlight reels on social media of people crushing their goals, and we think they must feel so motivated all the time. But the truth is, successful people aren't more motivated than everyone else. They're just more disciplined. They've developed the habit of showing up even when they don't want to. They've learned to separate their feelings from their actions. They understand that feelings are temporary and often unreliable guides for what we should or shouldn't do. I'll give you an example from my own life. I work out most mornings, and I'm going to be honest with you, there are plenty of days I don't feel like it. And my brain will sometimes try to talk me out of it. My first thought is usually something like, do I really need to do this today? I'm tired. Surely I can take a day off. But I've learned that if I wait to feel like working out, I will never work out. So I've built the discipline of just getting up and doing it, and I don't even think about how I feel about it. I just go. And what's interesting is once I'm actually moving, I always feel better. The resistance is all in the anticipation. The doing is usually way easier than the thinking about doing. But if I listen to my feelings, I would never get out of bed. It's the same with going to meetings. A lot of times I don't feel like it. I don't want to leave my house. I don't want to put real clothes on. I don't want to drive. I don't want to stop working to go. But I'm always so grateful once I'm there. And the same is true for your goals and dreams. You're not going to feel like working on them most of the time. You're going to feel like scrolling through social media and watching Netflix or doing literally anything else that's easier and more comfortable. And that's okay. That's not a sign that you're on the wrong path or that you don't want it badly enough. That's just being human. And here's what you need to do: you need to show up anyway. You need to build the discipline of taking action, even when, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's where growth happens. That's where transformation happens. That's where you become the person capable of achieving what you want to achieve. And I want to be really clear about something. I'm not talking about grinding yourself into the ground or ignoring your needs or pushing through burnout. That's not discipline, that's self destruction. There's a difference between pushing through temporary discomfort because you're building something important and pushing through genuine exhaustion or ignoring warning signs from your body and mind. What I'm talking about is building the muscle of doing hard things when they need to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's about keeping commitments to yourself. It's about following through on the things you said you would do. It's about showing up consistently, even in small ways, especially in small ways. And here's the beautiful thing about discipline: it gets easier over time. At first, it feels like you're constantly fighting against yourself, but the more you practice it, the more it becomes automatic. It becomes part of who you are. You become someone who does what they say they're going to do. You become someone who follows through. You become someone who can be counted on, especially by yourself. Now, before we dive into action steps, I want to take a quick second to talk about something that's been a game changer for me this season, especially when life feels busy and I'm craving those calm, quiet moments at home. Cozy Earth is my go-to when it comes to luxury comfort. I'm talking about pajamas that feel like a warm hug and this bubble cuddle blanket that I basically live under every night. If you've got someone in your life who's impossible to shop for, a partner, your mom, even your sober bestie, this is the kind of gift that becomes their favorite instantly. It's not just a holiday gift, it's peace and comfort and slow mornings wrapped in luxury. When the holidays get busy and a little overwhelming, I want to give my loved ones the gift of slowing down and feeling cozy and making home their sanctuary. That's what Cozy Earth delivers. And get this, Black Friday came early. You can stack my code Angela on top of Cozy Earth's site-wide sale and get up to 40% off. Yes, 40%. But don't wait because these deals won't last long. So start your holiday shopping today. And if you get a post-purchase survey, let them know you heard about Cozy Earth right here on Addiction Unlimited. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. Okay, so how do you actually put this into practice? How do you start taking action before you feel ready? Let me give you some practical strategies that have worked for me and for a lot of people I've worked with. First, start really small, like embarrassingly small. If you're waiting to start that business, don't wait until you have the perfect business plan and the perfect website and the perfect everything. Just take one tiny step today. Send one email, make one phone call, write one paragraph. The action itself matters more than the size of the action. And second, expect to feel uncomfortable and decide you're okay with it. Discomfort is not a stop sign. It's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's actually usually a sign that you're doing something right, that you're growing and stretching beyond your current capabilities. So instead of trying to avoid discomfort, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Third, give yourself permission to be bad at things at first. You don't have to be good right away. In fact, you won't be good right away, and that's fine. Being willing to be a beginner is one of the most powerful things you can do. Let yourself make mistakes. Let yourself learn. Let yourself be imperfect. Fourth, create structure and accountability. Discipline is easier when you have systems in place. Set specific times for specific actions. Tell someone what you're committing to. Create an environment that supports the actions you want to take rather than relying solely on willpower. And fifth, celebrate the action, not the outcome. Every time you do something before you feel ready, that's a win. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, that's a win. Acknowledge those wins. They're building your identity as someone who takes action. Celebrate that. And look, I get it. This whole just do it before you're ready thing can feel scary and overwhelming. And I'm not saying it's easy, it's not. But here's what I know for sure: waiting doesn't make it easier. Waiting doesn't build confidence. Waiting doesn't get you closer to your goals. The only thing waiting does is delay your life. And I don't want that for you. I don't want you to look back 5 years from now and realize you spent all that time waiting to feel ready instead of actually living. Because here's the thing, you are ready. Maybe not in the way you think you need to be, maybe not in the way that feels comfortable or safe, but you are ready enough to start. You're ready enough to take the first step. You're ready enough to do something, anything that moves you forward. And once you take that first step, everything changes. Not because it suddenly gets easy, but because you prove to yourself that you can do hard things. You prove to yourself that you are more capable than you thought, that readiness isn't something you wait for, it's something you create. So, what's the thing you've been waiting to feel ready for? What's the conversation, the project, the change, the dream you've been putting off until the stars align perfectly? I want you to think about that right now. And then I want you to ask yourself, what's one small action I could take today, right now, without waiting to feel ready? Maybe it's sending that email. Maybe it's making that phone call. Maybe it's sitting down and writing for 10 minutes. Maybe it's just acknowledging out loud what you actually want instead of pretending you don't want it because it feels safer that way. Whatever it is, I want you to do it. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. Now, today, because you don't need to feel ready. You just need to start. And I promise you, once you start, once you take that first action, the path forward becomes clearer, not easier necessarily, but clearer. And you start building that action confidence we talked about. You'll start proving to yourself that you can do this, that you are doing this. So stop waiting, my friend. Your life is happening right now, not in some future moment when everything feels perfect and you feel perfectly confident and ready, but right now. This is it. This is your life, and it's time to start living it. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope this episode gave you the push you needed to take that next step, whatever it is for you. And if you do take action on something after listening to this, I would love to hear about it. Reach out and let me know, because you know I'm always cheering for you. You can find me on all the socials at Addiction Unlimited. And before I go, I want to leave you with one more opportunity to take bold action. Book a call with me. If you've been thinking about coaching, wondering if now's the time, or waiting to feel ready, this is it. Let's talk about where you are, what's keeping you stuck, and what life could look like with the right strategy and support. And in honor of Black Friday season, I've got something special for my fast action takers, those of you who are ready for real change and total transformation. If you've been thinking about coaching, this is your window. Book a call, and when we talk, mention Black Friday bonuses, and I'll walk you through what I've got in store for those of you who are ready to step up, get support, and make real change. These are bonuses I've never offered before, and they're only available to those who book a call and commit to coaching this holiday season. addictionunlimited.com/call. But don't wait. Obviously, these are limited time offers. addictionunlimited.com/call. That link is always in the show notes. Schedule a time, and let's make sure your next season is your most powerful one yet. Because this is where we build the unlimited life. And it starts with one bold decision. So I will see you next time, same place. Now go do that thing that you've been waiting to feel ready for. And don't forget this Friday, a bonus drop from the Unlimited Life Starter Series. We're working our way through the 10 most powerful episodes from the archives to rebuild your rhythm, structure, and emotional peace. I love you guys. Have a fantastic holiday, and I will see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.